Greetings and good evening. This is Joelle, and I'm the Viberarian, and this evening is another episode of the Psychic Inside Show. I'm here on Tuesdays on the Viberary Collective Network, which is hosted on Blog Talk Radio. I love having these conversations. Can you hear the excitement in my voice? I'm like this every week because I get to talk to people about their journeys discovering psychic gifts and abilities. And let me tell you, the things that I have learned from people about what it can look like to come into your gifts are truly amazing, sometimes scary, sometimes heart-wrenching, but it's just beautiful to be able to share these. I believe that everyone is psychic. You just may not recognize it. And my hope is that by sharing these stories, we will have an opportunity for you to see something that might be familiar and learn that you too might be part of this psychic life. You know, we all are. So we're in this awakening place, and the language that we use is changing. And of course, at one point in time, the word psychic was a little bit woo-woo for some people. So we're here out having these conversations in an effort to show that it's really not that different from who you thought you were before that label was applied to you. Now, I'm here, and you can reach this show and come on the air to ask questions at 646-787-8436. If you're in the caller queue and you want to contribute or ask a question, press the hashtag or # and the 1 key, and that lets me know that you want to come on the air. Now, today we're not having any psychic readings on the show, so if you're holding for that, just wanted to give you a heads up. But we are certainly here to have an enlightening conversation with my guest this evening. Connect with me on Instagram and Facebook and what I like to call the Good Vibe Tribe. And my handle is at the Viberarian. That's TheViberarian. And I am on all the forums, and of course these episodes will reach you through iTunes, Amazon Music. We're out there on all the places where you can subscribe to listening content. And so I invite you to listen to these, and also you can check out the archive on the Viberary YouTube channel. So, without any further delay, let me get into this evening's guest. I am a person that believes that, of course, birds of a feather flock together. Your vibe attracts your tribe. So when people that I meet that I think highly of tell me that I need to meet somebody that they think highly of, I go about doing that because I trust the vibration and frequency has probably got something aligned with that connection, and so on and so forth. The energy keeps expanding. So my circle is being expanded this evening because my guest was referred to me by a previous person on this show, Leah the Sun Star. Awesome. You can catch her episode on the Viberary YouTube channel as well. Beautiful sister. So she recommended, she said, you really need to talk with this sister that I work with. Her name is Essence Turner. And she just gave me all these wonderful people to talk with, and I'm so delighted this evening to have Essence Turner, who is the CEO of Beautiful Happy Goddess. First of all, I love the name, and Essence, welcome to the Psychic Inside Show.
Hi, I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, I'm very happy to have you. And how can a person not smile when they read Beautiful Happy Goddess? I mean, that is such a beautiful name, and it seems to embody your energy. Now, I am telling our listeners that I don't know you. This is our first conversation. And so through this evening, I'm glad that you've agreed to share a little bit about who you are so that I can get to know you and others can get to know you as well. So being that this is the Psychic Inside Show, do you resonate with the word psychic?
I do. Yeah.
Have you always resonated with that word?
No, not always. It's still honestly a work in progress because of certain things I attach to being psychic, like you got to know how to read tarot, or
Mm-hmm. Okay, so it's become a defined thing that you're like, well, I don't do that, but you do like all kinds of work that I'm sure, we're going to get into here in a minute, because like you've got so many different areas that I'm finding fascinating. But in terms of your own particular gifts, can you describe what has manifested for you in terms of what we would call psychic or extrasensory abilities?
Yeah, I honestly resonate with being a healer. Like, I feel as though I've been a healer in so many lifetimes, and being psychic just it manifests through, let's say, being in session with someone and just knowing exactly what to say, exactly what they need, being able to see something that's holding them back that they can't see. And it just really amplifies the emotional healing work that I do.
So would you say that would be like claircognizance if you were describing it in the language of clairs?
Yeah, definitely. Clairsentient, like I can, that would probably be the strongest. It's like I'm able to feel something and then interpret it into words or a vision. I feel something and I can interpret it into like a metaphor for my clients. It might be a crazy metaphor, but like, they get it.
I can relate to that. Sometimes the images that we receive are really, and it's like I don't have any other way to share you the image that I'm seeing, but it does put a little levity into the work, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. Yeah, so I would definitely say that's the strongest one.
So, and you said that you consider yourself a healer. So I always have to, well, I don't have to, but I assume that means that you yourself have done a great deal of healing yourself. Is that safe to say?
Absolutely. Like so much healing over the last 7 years. I continue to heal. I'm very passionate about healing myself, because I feel like the more that I am a clear channel and like removing my own blocks, the more of a clear, open space I am for my clients, and anything that needs to come through me can come through me, and it's not blocked by any of my wounds and places that I'm scared to go to.
Mhm. That's so good, because, a lot of people skip over their own healing journey, right, and begin to try to work with people from an area of what we say like book knowledge instead of practical awareness, right? So backing up into like your story, and like I know you had things then that you were healing from. Were any of the things that you worked through related to being different, or your abilities and empathy and clairsentience and things that you experienced? Did those things cause you wounds as you were younger when you were discovering yourself?
No, I wouldn't say that those were the wounds. It had a lot to do, and I can go into what my specific wounds were that then, I wanted to heal, which led me to really recognizing my gifts. The healing actually opened up that space for my gifts to manifest. But in childhood, I didn't really share what was coming up for me psychically and intuitively. I just kind of held that stuff into myself.
Okay, so when you were a little grade school essence running around school, what were you, like, how did you first realize that what you were seeing or experiencing was something that you might want to keep to yourself?
So I knew, so I had an imaginary friend, and I talked to, his name was Bimbo, and And I talked to Bimbo all the time, and that my mom never made me feel like that was weird or off. So that was wonderful. But I can remember laying in the bed. I spent a lot of time in my room just because that was like my favorite place. And I can remember laying in the bed having this thought that if I touch somebody's hand, I know stuff about them. Like I literally remember thinking that, and I thought that I would grow up and be a psychiatrist. Like I just saw myself talking to people laying on the couch. So that is just kind of, I kept that to myself, but that's just in the back of my head. I thought that would be my path. Now, I wasn't just talking and listening to people as a kid because I was actually quite shy, but it was just, I don't know, I can just remember touching people's hands, and I didn't know if what came to me was true, but I just assumed that it was. And then another thing that is interesting to look back on is I can remember being between 5 and 10 years old, and my mom was pretty overprotective. I was the only child, and there would be things that I would want to do or to have, and she was very strict. I don't know if I just said that, but she was also very strict. and I heard the word no a lot. And so, but I knew that, like, I would talk to God and say to God what I wanted to have or where I wanted to go, and I would close my eyes, and I knew if I could see myself, let's say, at the birthday party or having that toy at Christmas, that my mom was going to say yes. But if I closed my eyes and I could not see it, then I knew my mom was going to say no.
So
nobody ever taught me that.
You developed a trust in this little sense then at a very young age.
Yes. Yeah, and then I lost it.
I was going to say, were you able to maintain that, or did you? Were there any specific things that caused you to start doubting, or was it just kind of growing and becoming part of school age development and things like that, or was it something specific?
No, it was, I think, just becoming more involved in school and friends and just getting caught up in the quote-unquote real world and spending less time in my mind, in my imagination, I think is actually what started the disconnect.
And were you disconnected for a long time, or like when did you begin to reconnect with this? Because I'm assuming then you were shaking hands and touching people's hands and not necessarily then having the conversations that you had been having before. Had you kind of blocked that communication out, or were you still processing it and just filing it away?
No, I think I blocked it out. And I think I actually started to just disconnect from God, like not have that same relationship with God that I had. And it never came from church. I mean, I went to church with my grandmother or my aunt here and there. It was just something like personal that just started in childhood. But I think with like life disappointments, meaning things that I wanted and didn't get to have, and even not just with my mom, but like in school and not being chosen for certain things. And I think I began to like blame God, and I started to disconnect.
So through a feeling of being like a rejection, like rejected, and then rejecting backwards.
Absolutely, yes. And that is actually, something. That rejection wound is actually something I'm still working through. And it started with abandonment issues with my dad. And I know that I've projected that relationship with my dad onto God. And I still am peeling that back to have my own pure relationship with the divine and not project my daddy issues off onto God.
Yeah, that was a deep statement there. I'm like, we could spend an hour talking about that. I was like, oh, you tapped into a real thread right there. But yeah, the abandonment and reject. Wow. Okay, I'm going to rewind and we're going to excerpt that sound.
Okay.
For later, for sure. So by this time you're like what, like late teens or later? Like when did you begin to reconnect with your own abilities and through your abilities that connection to God?
So then growing up, going into my teenage years, into my early 20s, like I started drinking at a very young age, probably like 15, just from self-consciousness and insecurities. I would like drink to fit in. And so I ended up kind of going down a dark path, which we could talk about if you want. I started going down this dark path throughout my 20s, and then right around my early 30s is kind of when I would just reach this place where I was like, God, if this is my life, then I don't want to live anymore. Like, I don't want to live this life that I've been living. And I had took a massage therapy training course, so I was familiar with like holistic ways, but I didn't dive deep into it. So when I came to that place of just like not wanting to be here if that was going to be my life, I something clicked and remembered like self-help stuff. So then I started kind of going on like a self-help journey. I would go to Barnes and Nobles and just sit in a corner and read books. And then I wanted to meet more people who were in this in the same place of wanting to develop themselves, become a better version of themselves. And so a friend recommended this meetup group in Atlanta called I think it was called Develop You. It was an intuitive development group. And so I just decided to go with her one day. And then it was just like the most amazing thing there, this group of people connecting to spirit. And we would sit in the circle. That's what it was. It was like a spirit circle. And we would sit in the circle and we would get connected. And then a person might be like, I have a message for you in the red shirt. And then you just share what you get. And for a long time, I didn't get anything, but I just enjoyed being in that room. And then the messages started to come. And I will tell you from the very beginning, people would have a message for me and say, you're supposed to be helping people. And I was like, who, me? Like, do you know who I was in my 20s and what I did? No, I should not be helping people. And so I was just kind of like, shoot it down. But then as the messages started to come and they started to resonate with people, and that relationship with spirit started to develop again, and then I opened up to the possibility that maybe I am supposed to help people.
I have this sense of when you were saying you weren't, giving the readings, I had a feeling that you were probably receiving a lot in the circle. That tends to be how it is. Like we come, we think we're there for something else, and then it's like we're ministered to through a Reiki share or a circle share or something, and then it's like, I didn't even know how much I needed that. So it seems like it was a very supportive circle for you to step into. But this was like you'd already kind of moved through your dark night of the soul era into a space of approaching your recovery before you got to this circle, right?
Well, I was kind of still in it. It was like I was just beginning and like made certain commitments to myself to not go backward. And this group actually helped me to keep my commitments to myself and not go like back to my old ways. And again,
so it's
just to keep
like,
moving forward.
Yeah, the community. I will say that for so many people, just having a container of safety where you can begin to do even your own work, not to be worked on by those others, but just for them to hold space, as people like to say, it's a popular phrase, but it's popular for a reason, because it really is healing to not be judged or by the community that you're in. And a lot of what you do now is dealing with forgiveness and worthiness and healing and shame healing, like I've seen from your posts and things like that. So it seems very relevant that you would be then holding space through the work that you're doing with your clients. Although you're doing active work, the beginning of that is holding space to be heard without judgment for people.
Yep. Absolutely. That's like the most important piece. Sometimes, like, I don't even have to go deeper than that. Let's just say, like, I mean, we do end up going deeper than that, but I'm often blown away just in one of the first sessions where I just have them tell me what's going on and what's happening in their life, and they just get to open up and share, and I'm just holding that unconditional support for them. It's like the tears and the healing, and they're like, this was so amazing. I'm like, I didn't even do anything. But that container, that space holding, and I do feel like I just have a magical gift for space holding. It's everything. I think it's a huge part in the healing process, in which people don't really get and understand. And I made a post yesterday of, like, that's one of the reasons why a lot of people can't heal on their own and been working on the same things over and over again on their own, because of that how important that being held in a non-judgmental space is. It's so important to heal, and especially inner child wounds.
Oh, yes, that's the tender heart of it, right? The tender.
Yeah, because she just wants to be heard and seen in a way that she wasn't, in her trauma, in the childhood. And so just you doing it by yourself is not the same thing as somebody else witnessing your inner child.
Now, you talked about at one point seeing yourself as a child, like to be a psychiatrist or a therapist in the traditional sense. When you pursued your career, the first, I don't know if did you have a first career before you moved into the healing work? So many of us have first careers, Did you have one, and was it therapy related?
Oh, my goodness. Okay, so this is cracking me up. Okay, so first, after high school, I went to the Air Force. I went to the Air Force. I was there for about 6 months, and I got an uncharacterized discharge, thank goodness. And then I ended up getting into, I went back home, then I got into an unhealthy relationship, and then I was in that for almost 2 years, and then I just decided I needed to get away. That was in Michigan, and I moved to Atlanta. Like, we needed space, that much space for us to not be together. And then I got to Atlanta. Atlanta's like the party city. I'm partying. I'm spending up all my savings. And then I didn't have rent one month. And I'm like, oh, my God, if I can't figure this out, then I'm going to have to go home. And if I go home, I got to be with him. And I was like, And so my friend was like, let's start dancing.
Hey, Atlanta's a good market for it.
Yeah, right. So, yeah, that's what I did. So I said, okay, and we started. She actually chickened out, but I had no choice because I was living on my own, and I went through with it, and I started dancing, and to be specific for those, stripping. And
yeah.
And I was actually there for almost 10 years being in the club. I felt like I just lived in underworld for almost 10 years. And so at the end of that is when, like, I started the healing and started the self-help work.
Mm-hmm.
So that was my first career to answer.
Okay. Well, it's so interesting because you're in the environment of, like, well, you're empowering yourself by earning your income and using your assets and your femininity, right? To earn your living, but maintaining like a sense of health in that environment. There is a lot of things going on contextually where not everybody's healthy or happy, and there's a lot of wounded dynamics happening in there. That's the same with any other profession to a degree. I'm a very sex work positive person. But when you are beginning to operate in places, let me tell you, I've been in law firms, and there's a lot of wounded people in the legal environment too. There's a lot of people processing ego wounds in the law firm. So in certain environments, there's certain wounds of power and esteem that are drawn to particular professions. So when you were there, were you aware of like your wounded sisters and brothers, or were you just like trying to be successful in your career aspect?
Yeah, no, I don't think that I was aware to people's wounding while I was there. I pretty much knew that my daddy issues brought me there. What you said about that sense of empowerment and being, in your feminine energy, that absolutely was there and was there for a while, and it felt really good because I had worked ever since I was about 15. I think my first job was at like McDonald's, and I worked at Denny's, and then I was also a nurse aide for a while, and so I'd worked. And so to be in this environment where I get to set my own hours and I get to make more money than, in a day that, like I would make in a week. And so that was very empowering. But I think there also came a time when my soul wanted out and it felt like I couldn't get out. And I think that's when it began to be toxic. And so I didn't necessarily have the resilience then that I had now. So for instance, I told you I took the massage therapy school. So I did that. I was like, okay, this is a way out. And I went through that 6 months, paid for it, and then I started interning with someone, and then she didn't hire me. And so it's like I let that be a kick to my ego, like nobody wants me. And so then I went back to the club. I took bartending certification. I got hired at a place. Then they fired the bar manager, and they weren't hiring anybody that she hired. So then I'm back. And so it was just like I just kept getting knocked down. And then I finally decided to just stay down and was like, this is just where I'm meant to be and who I'm meant to be. And so then I started drinking more, and it just became just very toxic, and I was just stuck in that place for a few years. And then I got to the other side, which is I'm like, God, I'm ready to get out of here. I don't care what this looks like, but I need to go. And I ended up getting a bartending job, and I was only making like $50 a day, and I was like, I don't care. You can take my house, my car. Like, I'm not going back. And my car did get repoed, and but the place did the bar that I was working at did end up picking up it to where I was able to start sustaining and taking care of myself. And then I didn't look back on the club, but I was still in a place where I could drink and still having this toxic relationship with alcohol. And so then the next place for me was like, okay, I'm going to still, bartend, waitress, but I need to be in like a family restaurant where it's not so heavily focused on alcohol. Then it got to the place where I'm just like, I just want to be out of this whole environment, and a way was made. But so yeah, that was the path. And so getting to this place where I just was like, I don't want to live if I have to basically like feel like I gotta be sexy to make money, if I feel like I gotta drink to do it, then this is just not the path for me. And then that at that point, that's when I started my self-help and healing journey. And so when I was at that intuitive development group, one of the people there working on their psychic abilities told me that I was supposed to be a radical forgiveness coach.
Okay. Had you heard of that before?
Never heard of it at all, but I was so in this place of seeking and just being open to my next step that I listened, and then I went home and I Googled it, and I watched some YouTube videos of people like reviewing the book, and then I decided to order the book. And then from reading the book, when I first opened the book, he says something like his mission is to raise the consciousness of the planet through forgiveness, and something in my gut went, like I'm on this mission. I'm on this mission with him. Like I just knew it. And then in that book, it also helped me to see how, my father wounds had been playing a part in my drinking and in my toxic relationships. And it just opened up so much for me that I was like, yes, I want to do this program, but I'm not going to just learn this to go help other people. I want to help people and I just committed to doing the work on me for however long that it took. And so then I got me a coach, and then I also just was moving through the program and doing things, doing the healing work on myself and beginning to transform my own energy through the process.
That is so amazing. I mean, there's so many aspects of, the journey. Backing up just a little bit, so when you were in the club environment, was it economic tethers that kept you to that as the fallback? Was the economic stability pulled you back? Or was it other aspects in terms of validation or the lifestyle or anything like that?
Okay, that's a great question. So economic, yes, but also the fact that I had low self-esteem, I had a lot of shame going on, which then created thoughts like nobody wants to hire you, you don't have any work history. So it was like just my own mindset really that kept me in there, because I wasn't necessarily in the lifestyle. You wouldn't, if you met me outside of there, you wouldn't know that I was a dancer. And oftentimes people in there would be like, girl, what you doing in here? Yeah, I kind of stuck out as though like this, I didn't belong unless you caught me drunk. Then you'd be like, yep, she home.
And did your mother or your family know then that you were dancing? And was there any judgment in your family unit from that?
So I feel like I did a pretty good job hiding it. They may have known or heard from some people. That kind of started to get out when this guy just out of like random of all the clubs in Atlanta, this guy that I knew from my apartment complex growing up, maintenance or something, and he came in there. He still lived in Michigan, but came to Atlanta and went to this club and then went back home and, was telling everybody that I was a dancer. And then there was this time my mom was visiting and she found some pictures of me on stage, and I told her that I was just on stage for somebody's birthday part, because like it was like a streamers and stuff in the background. I was like, oh, sometimes I said I was bartending there, and sometimes the bartenders get on stage with the birthday girl.
Right.
I don't know if she bought it, but it just was never, we never went any further into it. That's kind of her personality of not, just not really wanting to talk about things. So it just was kind of left at that.
So it was really really just your internal responses to who you perceived yourself to be at the time. It wasn't from an external judgment necessarily.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
No.
And so as you were there, as you look back on the happy, beautiful, happy goddess, right? I mean, that's like such a beautiful name, but here you are at a certain phase being very beautiful and earning money because of your beauty, and that bringing in happiness, right? But, the toll, it sounds like, was not truly the happiness by the time that journey got done. As you started into your professional work as a healer, have you found yourself drawing to you certain client patterns?
I do want to say something because it just came up that there was a time in the club where I did feel my magic and connection come back. Like I literally felt like God was there just like looking out. I could ask for something and it would appear, like it would come through a man, but it would still just be there. Like I remember this one time my car, there was a shooting, somebody was shooting in the parking lot and my car got shot, and the bouncer told me, and I was crying, and I just was like, God, I don't even know what to do or where to take my car. And just like in 5 minutes, a guy was like, what's wrong? And I told him, and he was like, oh, my homeboy got a body shop. Like, he's going to hook you up.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it was like magic was all around me, and like some of my close friends who I would tell these things, they were like, you're so magical. And I just kind of just like brushed it off. But like looking back, it was like me being in my femininity, me dancing, being really connected with my body was like activating the magic. I just like that just came up and it just felt really special. So I wanted to share that.
Oh, that's huge. That's huge because that's one of the constant messages that I want to reinforce to people is that our frequency of being purely joyful and free inside of ourselves, whatever that looks like, if it's, bouncing and twerking to a good, I tell you, God loves me when I'm in my car twerking, you know what I'm saying? But like to be in the active experience of something that you truly enjoy it elevates our frequency, and we are so much more connected, and it's a different high than a drug or alcohol high, but you can definitely feel it when you're like in your and the world disappears, right? It's not about what people are seeing you. You're just in that moment. So, of course, God exists in all kinds of circumstances, but we feel it more when we're in a happy state. So, healing yourself, as you're talking about, so that you can become into that happy state. A lot of the old teachings say, well, you have to be worthy of the blessings, and you have to have cleaned up and confessed, all this kind of like paradigm of being outside of the frequency of God because of who you are, what you've done. And things like just dancing and realizing that, I'm feeling it, I'm reconnected, I'm in my happy place, and I'm being supported when I'm in my time of need. That's very liberating to realize that connection is there regardless of what your journey was.
Yeah, and that was, it was really affirming then that I was loved, because I didn't make it mean that God wasn't there because I was in a strip club. Like that never like occurred to me. I just felt like God was wherever I was, and that God was not judging me. So when that magic was happening, I was very aware that it was because of, me trusting that I was going to be safe and taken care of, and then me being deeply in my body. And half the time when I was dancing, I was looking in the mirror and looking at myself, and I was just really feeling myself.
Right. Right. It's not even about you. Right. But you're looking in the mirror, like you're talking about. You looked in the mirror and you were just feeling yourself in a positive way. And that is not what a lot of people who even get up to brush their teeth, let alone stand on a stage naked in front of an audience, you know what I'm saying? We have a problem looking in the mirror and feeling ourselves in all of our sexy. So, the work that you're doing and have done through yourself on yourself and are passing on to others is so important. Now, the radical component of the forgiveness, what is radical forgiveness?
Okay, so what makes radical forgiveness radical is that nothing wrong ever happened.
Oh, I'm delighted, right? There's no such thing as wrong, right? In that paradigm.
Right. Yeah. So it's basically like the whole things don't happen to you, they happen for you, for your evolution and journey. And so I don't at all expect for my clients to come in believing that. They can be very skeptical of that, because forgiveness, in radical forgiveness, it's a process. So in order for them to get to that more expansive view, that spiritual seeing things through a spiritual lens, they have to move through the pain first. Otherwise, they're just looking at their life and what happened to them through the eyes of pain. So we process that pain, and then they're able to see how it all played out for them and how they've grown and evolved through or because of or in spite of what happened.
And from all of the things that I've read about you, you're not just doing one modality of work with your clients. You're like a multimodal person. You got tapping, shamanic work, this radical forgiveness. Did I see human design also in your?
No, I am a human design projector. I've just touched on that a little bit with my clients. Are you familiar with human design?
Very little. I've gotten, I think, a little profile of myself before, but I never really got deep into understand how it operates.
Gotcha. Yeah, so I touch on that a little bit just because it is helpful, and I attract what's called projectors. I'm a projector, and we're guides. We're meant to guide the generators in human design, and so that So I like to know what people's design helps me help them a little bit better. But in addition, I'm also a certified in Reiki, sacred money archetype. So I feel like I fill my tool belt, and then through my psychic connection, spirit is able to use whatever tool that person needs in our different sessions.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So the work what does, say, a typical client who approaches you, could you describe who they are, where they're at, and then what the work with you looks like?
Yeah, so let me see. So for a while, it just looked like people wanting to heal mother-father wounds. That was, a big part of my journey, especially healing my father wound. Oh, I want to say something else magical about that. So when I started doing the radical forgiveness work and realized a lot of my issues were, my daddy wounds, I decided to work on that for me, like finding forgiveness for me. And at that point, I hadn't heard from my dad in probably about 5 or 6 years. But then once I got to a real deep place of forgiveness and understanding that my journey could not have been any other way. Like my dad was just literally not meant to be a part of my journey. And some other women get to have their fathers there full time. That wasn't my path. And when I really got to understand, like he did his job. He helped to bring me into this world, and then he was meant to go live his life. So when I really got that on a deep soul level within like 3 months, after 5 or 6 years, my dad called. And at that point, he promised to never leave me again. And he explained everything to me, not that I needed it, but like it just, he explained it. And then we ended up having a beautiful friendship for about 4 years, and he passed away. And so that's been about 3 years now. So I'm very grateful for radical forgiveness because they gave me 4 years to get to know and become friends with my dad. And although he was a Christian, he was very supportive of the woo work that I did. All he cared about was that my baby helping people. And
okay, I think you must have been around because your phone signal started crackling and you had a little interference. So her dad can't even say you're talking about it. But now you're clear again.
Oh, wow. Okay.
It's so interesting because so many people, like I'm about to be 50, and I have a couple of friends that really, like one is really challenged with the abandonment and father wound, and unfortunately her father passed without there being any opportunity for conversation. Do you find that's the case a lot of times, that it's kind of like a posthumous reconciliation that people are coming to you to work through because that's not available for successful in-person kind of resolution?
Yes. Okay, so my forgiveness work is definitely not dependent on them ever needing to talk to the person that they are wanting to forgive and heal around. It is strictly for you to have that your own inner shift, because as you know, forgiveness is for you. That person, that the resentment that you're feeling in your body or the anger or the sadness never touches that person. So it's like you're forgiving them for you to release those negative emotions from your body. And so so that's one of the things I just basically say up front, like this has to be for you. You cannot do this work and because you're wanting it to make someone else do something.
Right. Where they always say, well, forgiveness isn't for the other person, it's for you, but it's really hard to experience. You can hear that, all day, but the actual physical, I'm sure the physical release that happens when a person does enter into that state of healing or healedness is palpable, physical difference.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So when you
can't, I don't think you can Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say, I don't think sometimes you can really fathom what I'm saying and your brain makes you think that you need that other person to do something for you to reach that real deep place of forgiveness. And so you can hear me saying it, but it won't feel true in your body because you have so much pain there. But once you release that pain and you get to experience forgiveness because that pain isn't there, the pain is gone. So now there's a place for the forgiveness to sit. In that space, yeah.
I like that.
You too full. Forgiveness has no place to sit. The table's full. So we got to clear out the chairs, you know. So forgiveness has a place to like really sit and settle into your body. So you can't quite fathom it until you can experience it. It's experiential. It's not something you can really comprehend with your mind until you feel it in your body.
Right. People don't realize how much the body can tell you about what you really have going on. But, I know you're an EFT practitioner as well, or tapping as some people know it, which is physically engaging parts of the body in order to make patterns, break patterns, move energies, and all that kind of stuff. So the weight of our wounds is so much heavier than what we know. You know, and
Absolutely.
to be enlightened up of these things. And, you know, that's the thing about this human journey. It really is challenging to us on so many levels. You know, children don't know they're going to be faced with this soul transaction of abandonment and parenting responsibility and what that felt like, you know, so we're kind of caught unawares by the human. The soul knows, but the human doesn't, right? And so the wounding that can happen to us, we all experience to varying degrees, and the awareness that we're able to then come to, you know, kind of bodes well to our overall healthiness if we're able to do that. So it's just, you've got so many things in your toolkit, as you said, that it's like the angles that you're approaching this healing conversation, it just could fill up so many conversations. When people work with you, are they coming for many, like several, because, you know, in the psychic world, people say, oh, I'm going to get a reading, right? And so you go and you sit with the reader, and they may show you what the guides are saying or communicate to you from the other realm, give you a little tune-up, or, you know, the whole thing of readings is you're not necessarily trying to foster an ongoing dependency with that person, versus in coaching and the therapeutic side of intuitive and psychic work really is like a longer term, similar to regular therapy, where you have to go several times in order to like really do the work. So your clients, are some with you for a few sessions and others for like longer term development? Is there a common type thing, or is it kind of all over the ballpark?
Okay. So when I first started, I would do just like 4 or 5 forgiveness sessions, and we would just work on one issue, you know, whether it's a mother wound, father wound, or an ex or something, and we fully work to get through a place of forgiveness. But what I would find is, and what I noticed with myself is, let's say we did some father work, got to a good place, there was still the piece with that father wound, what it does to your self-esteem, what it does to your self-worth. And so I wanted to be with my people longer so that they can heal on multiple levels. And so I do still have where I work with people like in 4 sessions, but I typically work with people from 4 to 7 months. And just to give you an example of one lady, and I have permission to share this story. It's on my website and on my YouTube channel, where her friend recommended her to me because she had been to therapy throughout her life. She was in her 50s and just feeling suicidal, unhappy, unworthy. And when she came to me, she told me that she was getting a divorce and she was feeling like worthless, but that isn't the first time she's felt worthless. It's been there because she was molested by 3 of her stepbrothers for probably about 4 or 5 years. And so at that point, I hadn't worked with anything like that, but Spirit was like, you got this. And so it's like I knew in my soul So that goes back to being a healer, that I knew that I would be able to bring a certain type of healing to her that she wasn't able to get in therapy or psychotherapy. And of course, pills was never going to heal the wound of sexual abuse. So we just started and we did a lot of inner child work and healing her inner child who actually felt dirty and worthless. And we did some anger work with the stepbrothers. And we, in 4 months, got to the place where she was able to reach the place of nothing wrong ever happened. How she was able to see that this is a part of her soul's journey and that her mission is to minister and help other women who have been through this type of abuse. So she was totally able to get through the worst thing that ever happened to her and then see purpose. And then a couple months later, she even went to lunch with one of the stepbrothers, and not to talk about what you did to me. It was just like, that's processed and you're in town and let's go talk. And when she was able to do that from a very powerful, empowered place, she knew she was really, truly healed at that point.
Radical forgiveness, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. And then now more so, I have been attracting more entrepreneurs, female entrepreneurs. And it just happened. It just looked up one day, and I'm like, wow, like out of 9 clients, 7 of them are entrepreneurs of some sort. And what they were coming for was to work through shame, because shame was saying, you know, who are you to help people, and you can't make Facebook Live videos. And they would find themselves in this place of maybe showing up for a little bit and then going back into hiding and being very hard and critical on themselves. They have trouble with charging and receiving. And you know that, like, for us sensitive souls, and that's typically who I tend to attract, they may think that they're more in their masculine energy, but their soul brings them to me so I can help them unlock their feminine energy and their gifts and begin to trust themselves in a way that they hadn't, because they were so dependent on their mind. And so I'm able to help them drop.
You're talking to me. You're talking to me personally.
Oh, yeah, yeah, it's some really powerful work. And, you know, like, that's how I got started with the Beautiful Happy Goddess. Is in 2018, I just kept hearing the word goddess, kept hearing it, and then I just opened up, and she just was telling me, you have goddess circles, bring women together, help them feel safe in their emotions. And I wasn't leading in-person things, but I just listened and got me a meetup group and started having monthly goddess circles. And this is just the work that I do, is helping women to feel safe in their feminine energy, because so many of us it's been shut down. Like, we were made to feel like we're too sensitive if we are in our feelings. We learn to not trust ourselves, not listen to our intuition. So then they're experiencing the same patterns and things over and over again because they're not listening to themselves, not trusting themselves. So it's like, now I'm just removing any emotional blocks and childhood traumas that are stopping them from sharing their gifts and talents with the world.
That's so, I'm just giggling because I'm like, okay. I mean, being an entrepreneur is definitely you can encounter wounds, because when you know that you trust the idea, you trust the product that that you are creating that's launched your business, and then to get out into the world, into the marketplace, and begin to experience the matrix reaction to your baby, right? It can be very damaging to your esteem or your trust to say, well, I know what God showed me, right? Like, God showed you people people sitting on a couch in front of you, right? But when you hang your sign in your business and for a while then nobody's sitting on your couch, you're like, but wait, I saw it. I know what I'm doing. And then that client comes and it's like, oh, finally, right? But then through the ups and downs of all that you do as an entrepreneur, where you're wearing all of the hats, not even beyond the hat that you're really good at, you have to become the master of all things when you're a solo business starting. And that in and of itself can lead people to feeling failure, feeling shame because the euphoria of the launch has died down, or people comment and say, oh, I thought you started a business. You know, like it can be very damaging for people who aren't prepared for the level of emotional resilience that needs to come. We all learn about financial resilience when you're starting a business, but nobody tells you about the emotional and spiritual resilience that you may need as part of that process of launching your dream.
And for those of us who have experienced trauma, it can bring another level of like fear and shame because there's a part that needs to be protected. So, for instance, a lot of people with trauma experiences just not feeling safe to be visible, to show up, and that definitely happened to me. Like it would take 4 or 5 hours to make a video. When I would go to post, there would be so many hurtful thoughts in my head, and what it came down to is an incident that happened in high school where I was shamed and embarrassed, and people like told my business, and it was humiliating. And so then that my inner teenager didn't feel safe showing up online. Like I could do in-person stuff, but being online where I didn't know who was looking at me, who was seeing me, it felt dangerous. And so there was just a lot of turmoil because there's this part of me that's like committed and I'm doing this, but then there's the other part of me that's like, no, I'm scared. So there's that inner battle happening. And so that's another one of the things that I really help the entrepreneurs with is healing whatever trauma is stopping them from showing up, being visible, and feeling safe. It's honestly it's so much around safety that we don't realize. And then my mentor in Radical Forgiveness, he used to say that relationships aren't for what Cosmopolitan said they are. They're for healing. They're for completing your childhood. And I think the same is true with your relationship with business. It definitely can hold up a mirror for you to what needs to be healed in you.
I'm sitting over here. My seat is really hot. Okay, I'm like, okay, like goes to the website, signs up for a session, right? That's like the first conversation. But you know, it's always so resonant because of why we attract people for conversations. And of course, the purpose of this, even though I'm having these conversations in order to shine a light and make it more accessible to others, it's a conversation between me and you first. So I don't skip that part of the transaction either. You know, so I'm just like, wow, all this, I've got all kinds of little bookmarks and notes ready for after the show is over. So, but beautiful, happy goddess, you've been in business how many years now?
I would say, okay, 20, I started saying I was coach and certified probably like 2016, 2017. But I don't really think I got serious and committed until about 2018. And then 2020, so one thing I didn't say is it all came full circle to where, you know, the author of Radical Forgiveness, who is here to raise the consciousness through forgiveness, I got to meet him, and then he asked me to be a part of his team. So then I worked for him at the Institute of Radical Forgiveness for 3 years. So my soul was right. It knew I was on this mission with him.
It knew. Well, the reader was right in your circle who said that you needed, they saw you doing it. That's amazing.
Absolutely.
Like literally, not just reading the book and doing it. Like you went to do it.
Yeah, and I'm like, who gets to meet and work with the author to do the work that, like, the book changed their life? Like, that just doesn't happen to people. So, like, I know that I'm on that mission with him to help people heal. And so for a few years, I was hiding behind him because of still, like, my own shame and trauma and not really ready to put myself out there. And then he started to, you know, push me out there, and I felt, again, safe with being in person, and I would do forgiveness classes, like 10-week, 6-week forgiveness classes at a metaphysical bookstore in Atlanta. And then 2020 was my first year where I said, I'm not working any other jobs or side jobs. Like, I am going to build my online business. And so 2020 was the year that I just stayed committed to building my own thing, not working for anyone else. And so, so that has been amazing to just be in my own energy, work for myself, see clients in the way that I want to see them over the last year and a half.
Funny how that lined up with the just in time for the 2020 transition, right?
Right, yes.
It's like, wow, so you couldn't plan it better if you tried, right? Somebody had a plan, right?
Yeah, because you don't know, but I was working in hospitals, like on the side of my healing work, and I chose to leave a project that I was on to focus on my business. So I'm glad that I made that decision for myself before the project was canceled, you know, back when COVID, you know, it was. So I'm very grateful that I made that empowered decision to step away and do my own thing before I was actually forced to. So it was going to happen regardless of 2020.
Right. Radical change, right? Now, in your client work, are you working with any masculines?
I have. So I don't want to say that I don't, because I actually worked with one of my clients' husbands. We had finished, me and her, and she's like, my husband wants to work with you. And we worked together for 3 months, a couple months ago, and it was actually delightful because he was so open with his feelings and emotions. Because one of the reasons I'm not as comfortable working with men is because I don't like to pull things out of people. I want you to just be open and to share and to be able to let things pour out. And he, on our consultation, you know, basically committed to not holding back and to being fully present and to dive into his emotions. And so I took him on, and he definitely did that, and it made our work potent, powerful, and beautiful. So if a more masculine energy felt the desire to work with me, I would definitely be open to a conversation. But it's easier for me to work with women because a lot of my work is so emotional, and because I am a woman and I've like been on the journey that I help women through. It's easier for me to speak to them, but I'm definitely not opposed to it. It's just easier for me to speak to them and understand them, so that's what I gear my marketing towards.
I am seeing that even in my own clients that there's an uptick of like awakened masculine energy that is seeking to look at their own abandonment wounds. And also connections of emotion that like wanting to really understand more about their emotions and seeking psychic guidance for it, which at one point in time this was really very firmly a feminine kind of area of, and still is predominantly, I think, area where women are seeking spirit, but I think men are doing it a different way. It just doesn't look like what we do it, so our business models, like you said, are geared towards what we know. The men are doing and having conversations about emotions differently than they were 20 years ago, for sure. And I think there's a conscious parenting that's happening that is raising generations of children to be more emotionally validated and heard than what we might have experienced coming up as well.
Yeah, so my boyfriend, I refer to him as my partner. Something else amazing that came from me doing my healing work is entering in a healthy, beautiful relationship for the first time. It's been 7 years now, but that also was a result of the work. But I asked one of my life coach friends who only worked with women, she worked with women empaths, and I said, I just have this feeling that you would be perfect for my partner. I think coaching would be good for him. Would you be open to it? And I had to, talk to both of them, but he agreed, she agreed, and they had a call. And it was so powerful for her to help him that she's decided to open up her coaching to men.
All right.
So
that's great.
Yeah, so there, I do feel like there is this shift where men are ready to dive in and release the things that are holding them back and like getting out of the ego and trusting their intuition and guidance more. And it's really beautiful to see it happening in my own household.
Living it and being it, right?
Absolutely.
We've got a comment in the chat room. It says, OMG, this show is amazing. Thank you for sharing your beautiful journey. And then absolutely beautiful metamorphosis is a comment. And also on Facebook, the stinks have been plenty. Your story is so powerful. Bravo. So we've got people tuned in this evening who are definitely, resonating with what you're sharing. It makes me, I don't think I've stopped smiling, honestly, since the start of the interview. I've been just cheesing here because I'm like, oh, this is great. It's stuff to me. And of course, I'm feeling it all over in my own life, very relatable conversation. And so for people who want to work with you, how can they find you?
You can find me at essenceturner.com. And from there, you can get to my YouTube channel and my Facebook and Instagram, which both of those are at Beautiful Happy Goddess. So I would love if you would follow me. You can leave me a message about, the interview. Yeah, I would love to hear from you.
I'm going to put links to your virtual real estate and connections in the show notes for this podcast so that when it goes out, hopefully that will be available through the podcast directories. Also, definitely on YouTube, in the notes to this show, we'll have links to how everyone can get connected with you directly. We'd like to make it easy for people. One click and you're connected if possible. On your YouTube channel, what kind of content are you sharing?
It's kind of, I would say, all across the board, but it has to do with healing, forgiveness, and now I'm starting to zero in more on the entrepreneurial journey. So I'm working on a series called It's Safe to Be Seen, where I'm doing tapping and helping with visibility. Spirit told me that I'm going to have a channel that's like the premier place for entrepreneurs to go heal. So I am stepping up and stepping into that and creating content for entrepreneurs and really thinking about the things that stopped me on my journey and then creating content to help others work through those same issues.
I love that because it's like spirit. You're still, it sounds like this is like a traditional thing, but it's really about your spiritual connection and insights and that reconnected God, conversation that you're having, that you're trusting now without as much. Of course, we all have moments, but like very strongly trusting in this, that they've shown you who you are to help and how you are to help it, and you're just doing it. So this is all, to me, the psychic journey of stepping into yourself and your unique gifts, which you absolutely were born with to do.
Man, when you, I just want to say for people, because, on this journey, sometimes, like, we can have God wounds, and I'm still working through mine and developing what my relationship with God is, and it is a up and down, off and on relationship, but I'm just committed, and I just want to say this to people, like, find your own relationship with your divine. Let go what you've been taught, and just really go into your heart, go into your soul to create that connection to spirit, because I could not be where I am if it was not for me always listening to that soft voice within, always feeling guided, like when I ask, and these little things showing up. But if I wasn't trusting, then I would not be here. And it's so I just would like to encourage people to, like, do that work of finding what your relationship is to the divine. You don't have to call it God. Like, what name feels good to you, and develop that relationship, because it literally is everything.
Mm-hmm. I just don't have anything else left to say. That's pretty much, that's like, what else could you say, right? It's yours. It's your relationship. So don't abandon it. It's not abandon you. That's the thing that I heard you say as well, is that, our relationship with whatever you want to call it, it's us. It is consistent. That higher connection is consistent. It's our using or not using, or awareness of it, acceptance of it, that, is the variable in the equation, if you will.
Okay, I just got one of my crazy visions. It's literally like the sun being out, but you got on some dark shades, and you go out, and you're like, where's the sun? The sun ain't out today. So it's like, it's there. It's there. So it's like your connection, God, the divine, is there, but whatever lens you're looking out of, you just can't see it, but it's there. So change your perspective, change the way you're looking at the relationship, heal whatever you need to heal between you and the divine, and you will be able to feel that connection again, because it's ever present.
Yes. I'm glad for that. I can say, it's like it could come in and out in my lens if I change it, but I'm glad that I always have the ability to change it, and that there are people like yourself who are out here helping to change that, to turn the lens a different way and begin to see the pattern differently, because a lot of us judge ourselves because we don't know how to get ourselves out of. Like, we don't know how to shift our perspective. And so to trust another person enough to allow them to lead us into changing the frame, changing the lens from a skilled practitioner and somebody who is holding that compassionate space for you while they're helping you adjust your, your perspective, is something that is a true blessing on the journey.
Yeah, absolutely.
It has been delightful talking with you, and I'm so grateful that God saw fit to connect the dots between us through beautiful people and to pass this little insight into who you are to other people is my main goal of this. And I'm hoping this spark will light a fire in somebody's butt other than mine, because I sure am sitting on some flames myself, which is exciting because I see the applicability and the usefulness of how your gifts are manifesting in terms of helping someone like me even on this journey. And so I know that all the people I'm going to tell about this show afterwards, like, you got to listen to this interview. It was great. I know that, it's going to resonate with a lot of other people as well. So this has been a conversation with Essence Turner, a beautiful, happy goddess. And this is the Psychic Inside Show. And next week, my guest is going to be Amy Catherine, who is a medium, astrologer, mystic, healer. I don't know how many other labels she has, but we'll be back for another insightful look at someone's journey discovering the woo-woo side of their reality and how they brought that woo into the normal part of the magic, as Essence talks about, like being magical in every moment and like really being in the beautiful bliss and excitement of that happy connection. This has been a beautiful conversation, Essence, and I thank you for your willingness to share in such a transparent way and to allow us into your wounded story and your healing story and all of those vulnerable things. I really honor you for being in that space with us this evening.
It's been my pleasure. Thank you for this opportunity to share my story. I haven't stopped smiling either. I feel like I'm on cloud 9. So thank you so much.
Beautiful. To all of you who have been listening this week, I absolutely wish for you that you have all of the blessings that you can possibly hold, and that then that overflow of abundance will spill out and bless the world around you. The light in me absolutely honors the light in you. Namaste.